Okay, so this is a solar flare install. Just a quick little couple tips. So, not solar flare. I always say solar flare. Flarespace. Solar flares are very different. Flarespace install. For this is a Ford Transit 2016. It's the longer wheelbase, but not the extended butt on the car. So, this is what it looks like. We've got it taped up. We glued it up yesterday, and it's just kind of still curing here. But this is the recommended way to tape it. Gaffer's tape is, I guess, technically what's recommended the most, but the blue tape seemed to hold just fine. So the best way it seems like to do it is to wrap the tape all the way around the top, and then when you bring it down, don't stick it on the indent here because that could pop off and change how much tension's on the tape. Just go straight from there onto the panel itself, onto the flare. And then I think an important step is just to make sure it's taped solidly underneath to kind of like catch it. Helps as well. And so one thing that you'll notice on our install is that we did put a strap. There's this red strap here, and this is not really supposed to be how you do it. So we kind of just secured it onto the rack on top, secured it onto the bottom. This is barely tight, the strap. Like, it's just a little bit of tension. And the reason that we did it, we did not do this on the other side. We thought we might have it as an option, but we didn't use it because the flares fit really well on the other side. But here, what we were seeing on the top, up here, we were seeing that it stuck out just a little bit. Like, it kind of seemed like the whole thing kind of just like had a little bit of a bow to it. And when you pushed on it, it would suck in like 1/8 of an inch. And so I didn't want to just, there's no real way with tape to like push in against it. All it's doing is holding it up. And so I wanted to suck in that 1/8 of an inch. And so we put the strap on it and just lightly pulled it in. The risk of doing this, I think, is that you over tighten it. And when you do that, you deform the flare, and then it cures deformed, and it could cause other problems as well. And so I don't know, for us, I was just very careful to do it with just the littlest bit of tension, just to bring in that gap a tad bit, not to overdo it, not to over tighten it, and call it good. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. You can see, the gap on the bottom is really consistent, uniform. Nothing is oozing out anywhere on our seams. And so I think it turned out pretty well. I'm really happy with it. Let me go to the other side of the van here. You can see the flare. We did one flare one day and one flare another day because I didn't want to get myself into trouble if we ran into something unpredictable. I'd rather just be working on or worrying about one flare at a time. So this one turned out really well also. So far, no issues. One thing I wanted to show you from the inside, because this isn't really like a full-blown how-to video, it's just kind of some tips of things we learned. But on the inside, just in case you're wondering where to cut, because it wasn't always super clear to me where we were supposed to cut until we got the information. Flarespace sends you like a PDF printout with the flares that gives you really good directions. They did a really good job with that. And they also include the poly that you're gonna use to glue the flares on with. They give you 3 tubes of that in the kit. So they give you everything you really need for the most part to do it. Basically, you're cutting out, like this is another window that you can see, like this is the rim here of the window, this inside frame. This is what you're cutting along the whole way. Around the whole window, and then we just primed it here so the edges didn't rust. We just used a jigsaw, like a regular old jigsaw, and you might wonder, like one thing that we were worried about was here, like rounding a corner with the jigsaw, like the end of it is going to hit this lip, this rounded edge, and so and up here, trying to do the corner, you're gonna hit, you don't really have room. So that was a worry. I thought we might have to do a different kind of tool. But with the jigsaw, we were able to do it. You just have to kind of pull the saw out and then kind of like angle it and rock it and tilt it up so that the blade kind of like carves at this kind of an angle, like in. It's a little bit freehand, so the plate isn't like perfectly seated against the bottom like it normally would be on a jigsaw. But it totally worked. It cut through it like butter. We just used the metal blade on it, and the tip wasn't popping out, causing bucking or anything like that. It was deep enough that it was able to cut the whole thing out. So that worked really well. One final tip is that Flarespace recommends after you do the glue, you can see in some places, I don't know if you can see that very well. You see the glue is coming up here, and it's stuck in here. So what they say to do though is to go around the whole thing with caulking from the inside to cover up any pinholes that there might be. And so you can't really get the tube of caulking in there though. This gap is way too small. Like I can barely get my fingers in here. And so I went on Amazon and I just bought, I think I typed in like caulking extension tube or something, and I saw a kit of like three little tubes that screws on the tip of a caulking bottle that is a flexible hose that'll let you get into these tighter spots. And so it's like $5 or something. So anyways, I ordered that. So that's the next thing I got to do. And then the flares should be finished off with the install. This is the other one that we did. You can see that the glue here, is sticking up. I know that we got really good coverage with the adhesive, so that worked out really well. And that actually leads me to one other tip, and they mentioned this in the install, but when you cut the tip of the caulking gun, cut it off to where the tip is maybe around 1/4 of an inch of a hole. So you want it to be a fairly big hole, and then you cut a V into one side of the tip, and then when you apply it, it creates like this tall V-shaped bead onto the flange of the panel, and then so it's a really nice thick V-shaped flange. And when you put it on, it doesn't seem to get everywhere. As you can see on the outside of the van, like there is none of that black poly glue that seeped out to the outside of the flange anywhere. And so it really, you just apply it on the inside of the flange, not on the outside. And so it has plenty of room to expand to the outside without sticking out of the van. So we didn't really have to do any cleanup, to be honest. And you might say, well, if you didn't have to do any cleanup, did you use enough adhesive? And I think definitely we did. We had a really tall V of that poly stuff on there. And so I think it worked out really well that it was the right amount. So we got to waterproof test it still. So the proof will be in the pudding, but that's where we're at.